Hello and welcome to the Route 1 show. I'm Stephen Brown and I'm delighted to say we're now taking a look at all things Bradford City. And joining us from the Whitford Post is Jason Mckeown. Jason, how are you doing, mate?
I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for bobbing on. We've not had you on the show for a while, so I'm really interested to get your take in so much that's happened and what a season it's been for Bradford City again. First thing first, just to cover off the draw against Newport. It's a couple of draws back-to-back that's just halted progress. Were you disappointed with that?
Yeah, I think you look at those two games again away to teams who are in mid-table, and when we've got such a fantastic away record this season, the expectations are very high going into any away game at this moment in time. And they felt like two okay draws on their own in isolation, and not bad points to get. Walsall, although their form's not great, have not lost many games recently, and Newport are always a solid League Two side. But you just felt that with a little bit more behind us on the day of performances, a little bit better, a little bit more adventure and boldness, we could have turned at least one of those two games into a win, which would have put us much closer to the automatic promotion places. And that gap now is extended to 5 points with the midweek matches. So it just feels a little bit too far away than ideally I'd like it to be, when we had a chance prior to the Walsall game of going level on points with Stevenage and go joint third. So a little bit disappointed. There's a sort of results that kind of consolidate your playoff position, and if that's where we finish at the end of the season, I think we'll all be reasonably happy with that, because that's certainly progress. But it does feel like automatic promotion is there if we can just turn a few of these draws into victories.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned their kind of results and that little bit of a gap just opening up there to the automatic, but also it's closed a little bit for being more solidified in the playoff positions. And I'm kind of fascinated. I mean, it's like such a tug of war, isn't it? Trying to chase down that automatic promotion. Just kind of generally. I mean, because after the Barrow game, I remember kind of the mood was pretty low, and then got 3 fantastic back-to-back wins. But it really is, like you say, just turning some of those draws into more wins. At this point of the season, are you where Bradford City expected to be as Hughes kind of achieved what he was brought in to do, do you think?
I think you'd have to say overall yes, bearing in mind where Bradford City were when Hughes took over, and the fact that we finished last season down in 14th place, which wasn't a fantastic result, obviously, overall, and meant that we had quite a bit of ground to make up. I think when you looked at the summer activity we did, and we made some very good signings and really put together what looks on paper a very strong squad, there has been expectations that we can push for automatic promotion, and at times this season we've looked to be on the brink of getting into those top 3 places and cementing that chance, and then haven't necessarily taken it. So I think overall City fans are pleased with the way the season is going, in terms of that we are up there challenging for promotion. And normally at this time of year, the chance has long gone, and we're just sat in the mid-table waiting for the next season to come. But I think there's still an element as well, slightly of thinking we could achieve a little bit more. And when you look at the tools at our disposal and what Hughes has got there, if he'd just been a little bit more wise in sense of how he's used his squad, just a little bit braver in certain matches, those 5 points off that we are now could easily be the position we could be in there right now. So it feels like decent, but could be a little bit better if we're being greedy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is fascinating as well. I mean, Andy Cook, who's having another amazing season, because he was rested for a period of time, wasn't he? And then obviously he's, come back into the team. I think that was to avoid kind of a similar injury that he had the previous year. Have you agreed with kind of user strategy with the squad? I mean, you mentioned there, obviously, if it had kind of made changes sooner and that kind of thing. But generally, do you think, especially like someone like Cook, he's managed him well?
Yeah, I think Andy Cook, you can have certainly no complaints, and I think he's done a great job there, Mark Hughes, overall, because there was a period just before Christmas where he wasn't necessarily scoring as many goals, Cook, and missing a few chances. And looking at his trajectory from the season before that, when he'd started reasonably well under Derek Adams that season, and then had a really miserable second after the campaign, you can see Hughes was really wary of that and wanted to do something. So the rest he made, it felt like it went a little bit too long because he was out, didn't play for over a month, but then he's come back and he's been in this astonishing form since that point. So it looks like a really good decision, and certainly something that Hughes is, vindicated for doing. I think overall, though, I think for most supporters, there's a sense of a slight disappointment that he's not used the rest of the squad in that same way. That for the last 5 games, we've kept the same 11 unchanged, and we've been playing Saturday, Tuesday, and it's just felt at times that you could benefit from using that big squad and resting a player for one game, bringing someone else seeing who deserves an opportunity, and then bringing them back into that next game when they had that refresher like Andy Cook, and they'll come back better for that. And it has been a little bit of a surprise, I think, for us all. Something we've had to get used to, I think, but that we haven't had that squad rotation. And you did feel at the start of the season when you saw how big the squad was looking and the quality that was in there, and the fact that there would be some very good players who wouldn't even be able to get on the bench some weeks. And the fact that Mark Hughes is an ex-Premier League manager who's been kind of in that environment of squad rotation and making that work successfully. It really felt like this season was going to be one where we would take that kind of approach, and you'd see changes to the starting lineup, but there'd be good changes, and you'd see the benefit overall because players would have fitness and form, and there'd be really strong competition for places. That hasn't really happened, and that's been a little bit of a surprise. And it does feel, when it comes back to the point about could be expecting a little bit more automatic promotion, it feels like we have a stronger hand to play than we necessarily have played so far this season. And when we have, I wouldn't say we've got the best 11 in the league, and that's been proven by the fact that Leyton Orient, for example, are absolutely flying at the top of the league and doing brilliantly. But I think there's an argument to make we may have the best squad in the league in terms of the depth and the quality that is there, but we haven't used it in the way that I think we'd all like to have seen, really. So that's been a slight disappointment, albeit we're sixth in the league, so we can't do too much.
And there's still time, I guess, for squad players to get an impact. I seem to remember earlier in the season, I think it was maybe a paint trophy match or something, where I think he played a completely different starting 11. It didn't go very well, and he seems to kind of just lost trust in like certain players in the squad, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. We started that campaign with playing Sheffield Wednesday, and we played a second string team, beat them really well. I mean, you don't know sometimes in these games how the opposition, how seriously they're taking things, and it may have been a bit flattering, but you kind of came away from that night thinking, wow, we've got some great depth here. He's going to have some real selection headaches for the next game. But then he carried on with the same League 11 he'd had before that, and the players who did well on the night didn't get a look in. And then in subsequent cup games, like against Leicester under 21s and against Burton, he again played those reserve players, but they weren't that same level of performance. And I think sometimes it's a balance act, isn't it? Because you want everyone to believe I've got a chance of getting in the team. If I train really hard, if I give my all in any cup game where I get an opportunity, I could get into that team. And when you do that opportunity, you do take the opportunity to play really well, and you still don't get into the team, and it looks like you're never going to get into the team, morale starts to drop then, doesn't it? And then you see performances aren't necessarily that good, and it becomes a bit of a vicious circle, because then Mark Hughes or any manager will go, well, I can't trust you. You've let me down in this cup game here tonight, and the opportunity just goes further and further away. So I think that's been an element of it, really, where there's been opportunities where players have deserved a chance to get into the starting 11, and some of the players in that starting 11 haven't necessarily been playing brilliantly or could do with a bit of a rest, not quite in top form, and he hasn't made those changes, and that can have a bit of an impact, because I think some players can, it's almost like it doesn't matter how they play, they're going to get an opportunity in the next game, and some players, it doesn't matter how well they do, that opportunity is not really going to come for them, and that's the balance that you've got, really, and it's been a tough one, I think, overall to do. And when you've got a lot of good players, it's an embarrassment of riches at times, but you do feel for some players they've been a little bit unlucky not to be involved more this season, I would say.
Yeah. What about the style of play? Because I know that's kind of there's been issues around kind of Hughes's patient style, and sometimes the crowd getting on the backs. I mean, where have you kind of stood on that argument in terms of the style of play, and whether there should be a bit more tempo at times potentially?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'm for what he wants to do. I believe in playing good football. I think you can play good football at this level. I really did not enjoy some of the recent City managers and the style of football that they played. So I do want to turn up to Valley Parade thinking that we can be entertained, and we're playing a certain way with good principles. I think the problem has been that, as you say, tempo is as much as you have those ideals, you need to, it was just a bit too slow at times, and that's been frustrating to the crowd. And I think to Hughes as well, because he's certainly made comments about that in terms of how they played in certain games where the crowd has been on their back. Isn't necessarily what Hughes wanted either. He's not asking for the two centre-halves to just keep knocking it back and forth 20 times a minute, as has been the case at times it's felt in certain games. So I think it's about the players as well having that bravery to up that tempo and to be a little bit more bolder as well on the field. And I think Hughes would encourage that. So in general, I do believe in what he wants to try and do. I think as the season's gone on, he has slightly evolved that style of play, and he has gone a little bit more direct and understood that in League Two, you need to just sometimes get the ball up a little bit quicker. You've got to mix it up and be a little bit more unpredictable, because if you just, everyone in the opposition know what you're going to do, they very quickly get wise to it and they find ways to stop you. And we did see that certainly in some home games in the middle part of the season. So overall, I do think it's the right thing to do. But I do think there's an element of the supporter base who do not agree with that and would like to see a bit more of a gung-ho, direct style of football, and that can cause issues at times because it's quite difficult for the players. You do feel for them at times when they are trying to do things in a certain principled way, when you've got people in the crowd who, no offense to them, have spent years and years watching Bradford City play very direct football, used to a certain way, and don't always accept different styles of football, and basically just shout, get it forward for 90 minutes. So there's that dilemma there. And it is a confidence to be able to do the right thing that your manager wants to do when you've got that going on, really. But overall, I would like to stick with it, albeit with a bit more pace in there, definitely.
Yeah, and it's kind of a bit forgotten as well. I mean, Hughes coming down to that level and managing at that level that he's not done before. I mean, it's interesting actually because we cover Huddersfield Town on the channel as well, and they went for a complete unknown element with Mark Fotheringham, and it probably killed their season off. Whereas, City really got this big name, and I like to wind the Huddersfield Town guy up. I'm like, hey, should have got Mark Hughes before Bradford City did. There you go.
Absolutely.
But you would think if City can get that promotion, I mean, there's no one better to lead them climbing up the leagues, is there, than such a big personality, someone with such a big reputation in the game.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that's what you can see at the moment with some of the building work we've been doing for this season. Even if it hasn't all fully beared fruit, you could see there's some real building blocks for the future that if we were to get promoted, I think we'd probably do pretty well in League One, actually. If anything, the style of play we try to do and some of the technical players we brought in will do better at a higher level than they will do in League Two, where it can be a little bit more kick and rush, where the opposition can be incredibly cynical in the tactics and the style of play they do. So that side of it, I think it can flourish under Hughes more than just being in League Two there. The challenge obviously is to get out of this league and to find a way to get out there that's effective, and then some of those principles and ideals maybe only hold a little bit until you get to that point where you can play in a more expressive style play. But I do think there's a lot there going for us in that, with Hughes, that he can be our manager for years to come. He seems to be really enjoying what he's doing. He's incredibly calm, and I think that's a big thing at Bradford City, because we haven't had that kind of calm composure with some of the previous managers we've had over the last few years, as in the leadership of the football club as well. And that's no disrespect to anyone, but I think young people learning and new people to the role and less experience from the past has meant at times there has been that kind of panic there. But Hughes really all the time seems to have that inner confidence, and there's no better example than the Barrow defeat, where as supporters we were incredibly upset and frustrated. As players, it was a really hard one to go through. To lose at home to Barrow in terrible form and not have a shot on target, horrendous performance. But Hughes was the calmest man there, basically, and just kept it all ticking along nicely. No dramas, no panic, and has now delivered us, 11 points. I think it is from a possible 15 since then. So, that's the beauty of having a manager who isn't going to get too caught up in the panic moments like those supporters do. Isn't going to have that same sort of level of panic and passion. Is very much calm and methodical and knows the way forward. And he'll see that view at that point at Newport, as much as we might think that's slightly disappointing result and we could have done better there. He'll see that as well. That's another point closer, and he'll be quite calm in that. And he'll look at those 46 games as a whole and know where we need to be after game 46, not necessarily where we are now at game 35.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking ahead then, Hartlepool and Carlisle next. It feels like it'd be very Bradford City if they lost against Hartlepool but beat Carlisle.
How do you see that? You look at Hartlepool's form. The Hartlepool game worries me more, if I'm honest, because their form is really poor. They are struggling, and you can already hear the talk in the build-up this week from the players and the local presses. We're going to be professional. We won't take them lightly. And we always say these kind of things and then end up not the same. We do on purpose take it lightly, but it's always these sort of games. We start talking about we won't take it easy. It's never a great thing, is it really? Whereas the Carlisle game, I think everyone knows where they are, how big a game it is, how tough Carlisle will be, and everyone will be incredibly focused and right behind them. So I think if we can get the win on Saturday, bearing in mind our very poor record of late against teams near the bottom, that will be a big thing and put us in great heart going to that Carlisle game. And I wrote about this week, I think that Carlisle game could be one of the biggest games we've had at Valley Parade for quite a long time, certainly a few years now. It's absolutely huge, and if you can get 4 points, 6 points over these two home games, it really does set us up for an automatic promotion tilt, especially some of the games coming up after that, probably a little bit kinder than that. So it's huge these next few days for us, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carlisle playing Stevenage, aren't they, at the weekend as well? So, I mean, if it kind of works out, you never know. I mean, they could really just close that gap up, couldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at Carlisle's fixture list; they've got to play pretty much everyone in the top 7 over these final few weeks. So although they've got a 6-point cushion over us now, and Stevenage a 5-point cushion, that can easily change. They lose to Stevenage on Saturday, we beat them, suddenly they're out of it, basically, out the top 3 potentially. So things will change really fast now, and every game is going to feel absolutely huge. And the good thing is we've got momentum. We've only lost 2 games since Boxing Day. That is a great record at this moment in time. A few too many draws, maybe, but I think overall we are moving in a really good direction. There's a real confidence about the club from the players and managers from the top as well. And I think as supporters, we're feeding off that as well. And these are exciting times, and this is what you want, don't you? Going into the end of the season, the promotion running, it's going to be fun, and hopefully as much as we can do, we'll enjoy it. And if we're nervous and all that side of it, that's enjoyable as well. It's certainly better than the other seasons where you've just got nothing to play for and you're just seeing it out and thinking, bring on the summer. That's depressing.
Well, this is it. I mean, Bradford City, they're torchbearers at the moment across the region. It's not a good season at all for the majority of the teams. Leeds, Huddersfield, they drop down. Even Halifax, Park Avenue, disappointing seasons across the board. So it's really Bradford City who are doing the business for us. Michael's just got in touch. Just a question: is this podcast that mainly covers individual West Yorkshire teams? It is, mate. Yes, we cover right up from Leeds all the way down to Guiseley and Liversedge. Jason, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Really good to chat to you again, and hopefully next time we speak, City might have crept into those automatic places. But if anybody wants to read Jason's writings, just head over to Whitford Post. Really good stuff on there. Jason, thank you, mate, and we'll speak again soon.
Cheers for having us.
Thank you.